expect to receive more than 20,000 calls over the holiday and says unemployment and other recession-related problems may be contributing to the current spate of suicides. In this extended report, our Home Affairs correspondent Robert Parker examines the current trend and assesses the toll in human misery which suicides leave behind.
Nearly a year ago, and Paul is helping his mother prepare the Christmas lunch. It's clearly a happy family get-together, and there's plenty of larking around. A more carefree scene could hardly be imagined. But 3 months later, 21-year-old Paul, who was a successful classical musician, whose parents were devoted to him, and who'd shown absolutely no sign of any psychiatric problem, took his own life. The first his parents knew that something was wrong was when they received a call from Paul's boss to say he needed to come and see them. They feared it might have been an accident.
About an hour we waited, and David said, "I'll see his boss on my own, we'll go in the lounge." And I remember being on my knees in the kitchen, just saying, "Please, please, please don't let anything be wrong, please." And Griggs was hugging me. He said, "No, it won't be." I said, "Please, please don't, please." And then David walked up the passageway and said, "He's dead." And I came into his boss and I said, "Was there a car?" And he said, "No." And when he said he took his life, I remember just hitting him, screaming at him, just hitting him, saying, "No way, not our Paul, no way." You know.
To this day, his parents are tortured by not having seen any warning signs and by still not knowing the reason why.
It's hard to come to terms with the fact that you've lived with someone so dear for 21 years and there's not one sign. There is no doubt in my mind it was planned meticulously, well in advance.
But he loved his girlfriend. He saw her on the Saturday afternoon, faced her with the shopping bag in his hand of the equipment that he needed. And in her statement, he looked tired, unshaven and pale, which wasn't Pap. He was so fresh and clean. And she said, "Please tell me, Paul, what's wrong?" And he said, in her statement, "You'll never understand." And that's the last words he spoke to her, "You'll never understand." And she said, "Try me, Paul, please try me." And they went into a little woods. So he had to do, he had to do that in the pitch black. We've been there. No one could see him.
So he was determined to...
Taped up all the windows. Taped the windows up. Everything.
Paul is just one of more than an estimated 5,000 people who took their own lives this year. It's a horror that can affect anybody. People in a suicidal state of mind often have a sense of being in an endless tunnel. A place where there's no help for their terrible sense of worthlessness. It used to be that most people who killed themselves were mentally ill. But now something strange and disturbing is happening in Britain. Suicide is now the third most common cause of death in young people, and more younger men are killing themselves than ever before. In fact, Britain has the fastest rising rate of younger male suicide in Western Europe. Keith Horton has studied every case of attempted suicide in the Oxford region for the past 15 years. He's a world authority on the subject.
The particular change that has taken place has been a very marked increase in suicides in young men, in men aged between 15 and 45. The rates in these men have gone up by well over a third, but in particular there's been an increase in very young males, 15 to 24, in whom the rates have gone up by over 3/4 over the past decade or so.
But the stresses of modern life are proving too much, not just for younger men. In today's highly charged world, the pressure to succeed is perhaps greater than ever before. And for increasing numbers of people, a sense of failure can cause a drastic loss of self-esteem. Although there are now fewer women who manage to take their own lives, Britain has the highest number of young women who attempt suicide in Europe. For 1 out of every 100 women aged between 15 and 19 will make at least one attempt to take her life.
It's remained a very substantial problem in the United Kingdom, and we're talking about the most common reason for acute medical admission of young women and the second most common reason for acute medical admission of men. So it's a major health problem in this country.
Altogether, the latest figures from the Coroners' Courts of England and Wales recorded nearly 5,000 suicides in 1990, out of an estimated 200,000 attempted suicides. But the official figures are thought to be a serious underestimate.
They are inaccurate in that they don't reflect accurately those persons who, by common sense arguments, would be regarded as having committed suicide. And my guess would be that the underestimate is at least of the order of 50%.
And judging by the agony of Paul's parents, it's just as well the coroner's courts often don't record suicide, for his father believes that of all the forms of bereavement, it's probably the worst.
If you've been taken any other way, through illness, through an accident or whatever, the loss is there, but you have a reason. With this, you are left in a void, where it's really leaving your life as a nightmare of asking questions.
You think you know them inside out, their little mannerisms, everything about them, and that's what hurts. I think, why didn't I pick this up?
You have no...
No idea. Yeah.
It's almost a sentence of life, of that you will now continue throughout your life to carry this burden, this tragedy. And I long for the day, it's yet to come to both of us, I think, where we can, like normal bereavement, look upon happy memories.
I can't do that yet. Take yesterday, a civil wedding anniversary. So it's a big day in a couple's life. You've gone 25 years, and et cetera, et cetera. But we were just so down and so hurt that, okay, there wasn't a card from him. You missed that other card. And what he was making us feel like, I was angry with him that he's put us through this. And I think, you know, did we deserve this pain, this agony?
Samaritans, can I help you?
The Samaritans, perhaps more than anybody else, know what's happening to the mood of Britain. In their Slough office, they hold a training session to teach new volunteers how to handle calls.
It would just seem that it would be so much easier if I was dead.
So, does that mean that you're thinking of suicide?
Yes, I am.
Last year, the Samaritans took over 2.5 million calls from desperate or suicidal people. The organisation, which provides a totally confidential service to its callers, doesn't know how many lives it saved. But one thing it knows for certain.
You want to sleep and not.
The nature of the distress that we share with people is increasing. It's becoming, there's more of it. And for individuals, perhaps the ability to cope over a prolonged period with feelings of desolation and despair, that ability is diminishing.
Despite all the research, nobody really knows what causes people to take their own lives. Many of the apparent causes, like loneliness, relationship problems, poverty, or a sheer lack of self-regard and worth, appear to flow together to form a devastating feeling of despair. With this despair in place, experts believe that suicide may then be triggered by a single event, an event which to outsiders may seem trivial, but which to the individual concerned can be absolutely shattering. Despite the complexities involved, an increasing body of expert opinion believes that one of the most important background factors in explaining the rise in the rate of younger male suicide is unemployment. At a conference on suicide